Welcome back, everyone, to Keeping Current, the podcast from ERS and HVM that keeps you plugged into the evolving world of electrical power systems. Again, I'm your host, Joe Dwyer, and today we're going to take a closer look at one of the most critical and unfortunately sometimes overlooked parts of the data center life cycle, acceptance testing. As data centers continue to scale at record speed, as everyone is aware, ensuring reliability from day one has never been more important. Acceptance testing plays a pivotal role in verifying that the electrical systems perform safely, efficiently, and exactly as designed before they ever go online. Joining me today is my good friend Jeff Brittain, Director of Regional Sales for High Voltage Maintenance, who brings extensive experience working with data center owners, contractors, and especially integrators to make sure that the power systems meet the mark. So let's get ready to unplug and connect. Welcome to Keeping Current, Jeff.
Thanks, Joe. It's great to be with you. I know this is our final podcast of the year, so I've been looking forward to it.
Excellent. Nice to have you. Well, let's start with the basics. For those who may not be familiar, or what is acceptance testing, and why is it such a necessary step in the electrical system commissioning?
Yeah, so acceptance testing, Joe, is conducted at the very beginning of a project, and it's meant to ensure that all the electrical components and systems operate properly as installed and that they're functioning correctly before the system is energized. It requires the use of highly skilled technicians using calibrated instruments to ensure the accuracy of results, which is really important. It's performed prior to startup, energization, and placing the equipment into service.
That is a large scope of work in a short amount of time for the requirement for data centers to start from concept to being operational. So there's a lot of work in that. Is there any other things that you think we might want to address?
Absolutely. So one of the key aspects of acceptance testing is it's there to find the early defects from manufacturing, shipping, or installation as part of the project. And it really prevents project delays, costly downtime, or future equipment failures after the system is taken over by the end user. It's really important that this be performed by an independent third-party testing group that can provide unbiased results, because you have a lot of different OEM type manufacturers that are involved in a power system design and implementation.
Sure. Yeah, I remember when I ran a large power plant out west years ago, and everything was, everything had to be documented, had to be done on a certain amount of time. So those key requirements are, in my opinion, instrumental in the success and longevity of a plant.
I was going to say, Joe, a lot of folks, they find it hard to believe that we find as many problems as we do with brand new system components, right? You think, oh, it came from the manufacturer, so it must be good. But we find problems with, cable failures, incorrect wiring, nuisance tripping of circuit breakers, manufacturing design issues, and a whole host of other items, including, protection control system issues, assemblies not completed correctly on busways. It's really surprising how much you find with, through acceptance testing.
Well, again, that all comes from the standards that are in place now. That's what I think helps us, identify what path we're going to go down as far as, is it operational? Is it not? What are the issues? So I couldn't agree more. So if we look at it, it's more about ensuring that equipment doesn't just look ready, nice and shiny and all that, but it's proven ready before it's energized. So why is acceptance testing, especially on data centers, given the scale and sensitivity of these operations?
Well, if you think about it, data centers operate some of the most critical power systems that we use today.
Yeah,
the power that provides, that's provided to those servers and the server data halls contains information that's vitally important to all systems. So that's such a critical power system. The acceptance testing must be performed to ensure reliability of that system. Right. So it's really about preventing any costly outages, repairs, or safety hazards that surround that equipment. and really catching things while they're still under warranty benefits both the
Mm.
contractors and the owners.
Well, that brings me into some of the changes in the market and the rise of integrators. As we all know, the data center industry is evolving extremely fast. Jeff, from your perspective, what are some of the biggest changes you're going to see in the market today?
Yeah, as you mentioned earlier, Joe, the speed at which the hyperscale data centers are coming online is putting increased pressure on a lot of things in the market that we see today, including, aggressive timelines of bringing
Yeah.
those facilities online quicker, and really the need for expert testing personnel to meet compressed schedules. And that's at a time when we really have a lot of limited manpower too, because of all the work that's going on. Some of these challenges and changes that we're seeing are really, you have to have technicians that have a real strong understanding of, generation systems, distribution systems, and really how those systems interact, between each other. So not just
Right.
component level testing, but how is the system to function? And so a lot of the focus has to be on ensuring the quality of those technicians, and there's also the need then, because of the timeline. There's been a shift recently, Joe, to move a lot of the testing offsite at integrator facilities to accelerate those timelines. So integrators
Huh.
are playing a really big role now to help out the electrical contractors and the end users improve their schedule efficiencies.
Yeah, I guess the only thing you'd have to be on the lookout for is the 1 in 1,000 breaker that didn't come that came defective or something like that. But I never thought of that. Literally, I never thought of that. So the fact that you mentioned that, it provides a positive alternative to get those systems online and making sure that the equipment is in good shape. So
Yeah, I think too, it really provides an improvement too of the overall safety, because a lot of what we're doing too is also, things like arc flash labeling and engineering services and training, as I know you're well aware of, that then follows that up. So yeah.
well, thank you for that bit of information. I was unaware of that. We've also heard more about integrators and how they're playing a major role in bringing data centers online faster. My question is, how are these integrators being used to accelerate deployment schedules?
So integrated facilities, as I mentioned before, they're performing the offsite testing of what we call skidded equipment. So what that's allowing is the contractors to work on site basically simultaneously and in parallel paths. So while you have contractors on site doing installation of some of what we would say the downstream equipment, you could
Yeah,
have on-site integration happening with testing for the upstream equipment that would be serving a lot of those busways and the data hall type of equipment. So
yeah.
there's simultaneous installation and testing happening at the same time, which really improves that overall schedule efficiency.
And when equipment is built and tested offsite, as we're discussing, can you walk us through what that process looks like in more detail? Because I want to know more about it, but also I'm not sure a lot of our clients out there or potential, peers among us might be not be aware of that. So can you help us out on that?
Absolutely. And I'll say too that it requires a lot of collaboration too when
Yeah.
you work at an integrator and at a site,
Hmm.
meaning you have to have good communication between the integrators, the installers, and the testing company to really, because what you don't want to do is have rework, right? So you have to make sure
Yeah.
that communication is proper. But no, integrators are basically assembling the equipment onto skids, and some skids, are just a metal frame skid, and others actually have enclosures around them. But included on the skid are items such as, switchboards, switch gear, panel boards, batteries. These skids can include both medium and low voltage equipment, a combination of both. And we've seen skids that also include busways and a lot of low voltage components that are typically even what you would think to be further downstream in the data hall are now being mounted on skids being done at the integrated facilities.
Well, I'm hoping that this discussion we're having is helping people understand that, yeah, getting a data center operational is a large undertaking, but there are steps you can take to mitigate the delay or some of the hiccups that might incur on a normal approach. So that's excellent. Thank you on that. One of the challenges in this model is that work happens in two places, the integrated facility and the data center site itself. My question is, how do you ensure that the full scope of work is completed and consistent across both environments?
That's a great question. And back to my earlier conversation, if you think about it, you can have things at the integrator being tested that would include, a lot of devices, right? Switchboards, protective relays, metering, transformers, and some of the mechanical components too on those skids, like the HVAC systems or fire alarms systems as well. And then on site, you could have testing done such as, interconnect wiring or full function testing or circuit breaker testing and any loose items that wouldn't be part of the skid. It's really important to utilize an independent firm that can provide an unbiased evaluation, but is also familiar with how to deliver those type of projects. And that's probably the most important thing as number one. I think the advantages of using, there is some advantages as well, Joe, of using the same company, the same testing company to do both the integrator work and the on-site work. And as we've seen on a lot of projects, that communication and collaboration when it happens about which equipment is to be tested where can really improve the efficiency and avoid that rework as I was discussing. But it can also avoid any gaps in scope. And it also allows the ability for shared knowledge between multiple companies about how to deliver those projects and how to improve the efficiency of what we do each time we then do additional skids of the same type.
Well, it seems that we're working, getting these data centers online, but also learning ourselves as we go along what are some of the best ways to make this happen. So I think that's good to see. That brings up another key point. That's the importance of having the right testing partner, like you discussed. What should data center owners and contractors look for when selecting an acceptance testing provider?
Yeah, so as I mentioned, it's important because you want to make sure that you're not only doing the job properly at installation, but you're setting up the equipment or the system with good baseline data for trending for the future for that data center. Most important things to look for in an acceptance testing provider is, as I mentioned before, independent and unbiased, right? So that way the evaluations are not performed by an OEM, and all of those problems can be reported back to the contractor or end user for coverage while under warranty, as an example. The ability to perform full function testing and interpret results in full time, Joe, is important. You want to make sure that as you're testing equipment, that you know what a problem is and that it can be resolved immediately, because that also improves the efficiency of the delivery of the equipment to the site. So real time is important. Obviously, understanding how to look at corrective actions and get those understood. Another important area is understanding, I mentioned this earlier, how to deliver these projects and really what are the customer's expectations. So understanding big picture, right? What a certain type of hyperscale data center customer, what is the proper scope of that? What are the aspects of the commissioning agent that may be involved, right? And basic understanding of the overall specifications are really important.
Right. Yeah, I couldn't agree more. And some of the things that you're talking about and focusing on, I see myself doing that, 20 years in the past, but not to this level. So, I understand exactly where you're going with that. And that's great information.
Well, and I was going to add too, Joe, I think, we talk about the criticality of these type of power systems and the levels at which are the test technicians now and the standards that are out there, such as NETA, NFPA 70B, NFPA 70E, and other specifications, and the familiarity of those and the training, right, that the technicians need to make sure to have. All that adds to that overall quality of that type of provider that you should be looking for.
With that in mind, what I'm looking at is that data center landscape is changing rapidly, especially with hyperscale. Companies leading the charge, obviously. So how do
Yeah.
you and your team stay ahead of evolving design specs and the build schedules, which has to be one of the most challenging of issues?
Yeah, there's in every project delivery that you have with an integrator and its site, there's also a strong project management aspect to what needs to be performed. Just keep that in mind as you're thinking, you're talking about tracking of projects,
Hmm.
test sheet uploads, coordination meetings, and the delivery and obviously most importantly safety, right, of all
Right,
aspects of
right.
how that's delivered. But as you're executing those, you are increasing your own knowledge. Obviously, the more hyperscale type of projects you deliver, but ideally you're continuously tracking those technological changes because there
Hmm.
are OEM changes, obviously, with manufacturers and the design changes that are happening now with a lot of data centers. So you got a lot of dynamic things happening that are related to designs and schedules that are all playing a part of that. But
Yeah,
I'll say as well, it's strong partnerships. Been
true.
doing this a long time, and it really comes down to how you partner with your contractors, with your general contractors, with the OEM, with the integrators, with the commissioning agents, and really being a partner in all of that to share the knowledge and work on how you deliver those projects.
Almost everything you're touching on brings me back to some of my nightmares when I was running my power plant. And the key thing is we didn't shop for, the ease. We shop for what you said, relationships. So I could always count on my supplier to get me that one little widget that I needed to put in that cabinet to get it online. And I could
Yeah,
not agree more.
yeah.
Well, good deal.
There's a,
Good deal.
I would say too, there's a commitment to continuing training, right? That you have to do as part of the culture of what you're looking for in a company, because
Mhm.
there's with all that evolving technology, you just see a lot of different types of switchgear changes and different testing techniques that you need to be continuously working on to improve the efficiencies of that different type of equipment.
Yeah. One of the key things I noticed is the actual data that's in the report and the ease of finding the information you need. And I've had some reports very difficult to find the
Yeah,
information I need,
yeah.
as you're probably aware of.
Yeah, and some of that, Joe, goes back to the project management aspect of the delivery and
Yeah, yeah,
and utilizing a company that understands all the different types of software program uploads for test sheets and test
sure.
data and how to provide that critical feedback loop for problem solving when you do find something wrong. So,
Right, right, right.
coordination meetings and really how that all happens in real time.
Well, the more I look at this topic, it sounds like adaptability and expertise are both crucial. With that in mind, how does quality acceptance testing help set the stage for ongoing long-term reliability once the facility is in operation?
Yeah, like we spoke about earlier, Joe, we're talking about critical power here that,
Yeah,
provides power to servers, and those servers, holds highly sensitive and important data that must remain energized, right? So acceptance testing really ensures the highest quality, reliability, and uptime of the data center. And
hmm,
it really sets the stage then for the long-term, maintenance program that
right.
facility would undertake.
Hmm.
But by setting that baseline report that you mentioned and getting those test sheets established early, it really one, it gives obviously insurance that everything's going to go good with system energization, but it sets the stage for the trending for the future maintenance program to comply with NFPA 70B, NFPA 70E, and NETA, those type of
Right.
standards.
Well, Jeff, I want to thank you for breaking down what can be a pretty complex process. It's clear that acceptance testing obviously plays a critical role in ensuring data center reliability from day one. That's it for this episode of Keeping Current. Jeff, before we sign off, do you have any last words of encouragement?
No, I just wanted to say that everything that's done really with involving the integrator and a lot of what we're doing at the site now for these hyperscale data centers, our ultimate goal is to extend the life of the equipment, improve the uptime of the power
Right.
system, and really improve the safety surrounding the data center for the long term.
Sure.
So
Sure.
just delivering projects in that way, and it is a big help to the overall data center for the long term.
Yeah, definitely. It helps the industry so much. Well, everyone, if you found today's discussion helpful, be sure to subscribe. Leave us a review. We very much appreciate that. You can also connect with us on LinkedIn to stay up to date. And as always, thank you for listening. Until next time, keep current.